Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews, and convention panels. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
So, I'm a big fan of audience participation. You don't have to, but first question, who has an idea of what they think this panel is about? All right. What do you guys think?
So like one of the games we backed on Kickstarter that's taking another good year or two or three to get to is like a Finding Neverland type one where there's a Neverland setting, you go through, you read the cards, you've got some choices, and you're building up your characters and going through the adventure.
Nice. All right. What do you guys think?
So, granted I have some D&D background, so
Sure.
I was thinking like going through like how to set up like a narrative, like because people are gonna do whatever they want with their characters and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of like figuring out like the storyline to like keep it together, regardless of what your players do. So.
To keep it together.
Yeah.
There's so much in that statement.
And see, I was taking it as this was a conversation on how RPGs have become more narrative, less mechanics, from what I've read from the description.
So now, second question, what do you guys hope this panel is about? What would you like it to be about?
How to set up rules like adventure type play in a fun way.
Tips and tricks on like how to, DM properly.
Fantastic. Any other? All right.
Strings.
Yes. So I'm going to start by answering the question that is in the title, a new genre. Yes and no. Yes, because in the last couple of years, there has been a huge push, even from major developers, to create narrative first, whether it's rules light or rules heavy, just something that gives the players more freedom. There have been some that have done it well. There have been a lot that have done it very badly. But one of the things is, if you're doing it right, if anybody remembers when you were kids and you would like arrange your stuffed animals or your toys and tell a story and do all of these battles, how do you do that as an RPG with people? So how would you DM and create a storyline that would be fun? How do you keep people engaged? How do you know when things are going off the rails or not before you're at the point where you're just like to just chop parts of their character off because you don't know what's happening? Those are all things everybody who's ever run any game where context first, rules second apply instead of it's all context. Your rules let you kind of figure out what's going on with that. So, shameless plug, I invented an RPG system called Transcendence, which would be like the most master level of improv with dice. The entire rule set is designed so whatever you want to do, you as the player, tell me, what is your character doing? What are they using to do it? What knowledge and skills do they have? What do they like? And what are you trying to accomplish? So it's not just like, oh, I swing my sword. It's like, no, I'm going to drop down and swing at their ankle. Because if I can take them off at the leg, that's going to keep them from running circles around the rest of the party. And they're like, all right, I'm going to try to jump over the blade. And you go, okay, so here's where our skills come in. That gets really, that's very high level. It's designed for actors, for improvisational people that want constant, continuous role play. We're not the only one, though. Pixel Upstairs is more of an introductory level to that if you're transitioning from D&D over, because Becca coined this nice little term called D and disease. every time we were working on something, we're like, something with this mechanic, what's going on? And we realized we were trying to figure out what the limits of the context would be and then build mechanics for that instead of giving people tools to play with.
You mentioned Pixel. What's that?
They're right upstairs. They're actually another narrative RPG system.
A narrative RPG system.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the reason why like a group of us are moving away from tabletop RPG to narrative RPG is honestly the difference between board game with minis and theater of the mind. And we like playing in theater of the mind. We like being able to experience and narrate and move instead of going, okay, how many tiles is this and what's the optimal shot lineup and playing with the mechanics.
Like that like full immersion.
Yes. The three of us are actually actors. So as you can see, I'll get up and I'll play my character. And I'll like if I one of my favorite characters that I played, his name was Roadblock. He was a goblin paladin. So I'd be like, every time I was somebody like, all right. And I'd just be doing this at the table. I'm like, and I parry here and I stab like this. And being able to like move that into your game so it's more than just, here's what I have on my paper that I can do. So that answers the question. Is it a new genre? No, it's what kids have been doing their whole lives. Like, everybody's been playing like this.
Arguably, it's the oldest genre known to man.
Yes. So, but it's nice that it's actually becoming like more of a larger game. So the biggest hiccup that I run into a lot, whether I'm playing or running a game, is when people's internal context of what they think is happening and then like just around the table doesn't always match. And that's usually where like, you gotta stop the game and go, wait, does it work like this? How is this laid out? Does somebody draw me a diagram? What's happening? Trying to get that even deeper to how does your character see the world in such a way that it's like your character is talking to their character through the game system. And then you kind of get into that narrative. And to answer both of your questions at the same time, give your players as much rope as they can possibly braid and see what they do with it. Let them go nuts. If they end up doing something that just sidetracks your entire world, behind the scenes, move with it. Like if you wanted them to go that way and they went that way, just move this over here. Just hide it. They don't know what's coming. That's the thing, is they don't know how the world's structured or laid out. They don't know where things are at because there's, you could say a big fog of war between who's running the game and everyone who's in the game. They don't necessarily know if the wizard's tower is to the east or to the west in the woods. So if they go off somewhere, you just go, okay, well, it's over here. Hey, you found it. Now, if you hand them a map and they're like, we're going to go off this way, you're like, all right, what can I put over there, which is a reason why it's never been on the map, to make them go, I'm not going to go off the map again unless I really want a challenge. So it's kind of that step back, take a look at what is it that your players are going for, what are they trying to do, and go ahead and just hand it to them. Some of the best sessions I've ever ran, I talked for 2 minutes, the players started talking and interacting and doing stuff, and then the session was over and I'm like, I haven't done a thing. They're all having a great time. They've done shopping episodes, this. I'm just sitting as the GM just like, what is that? They have a foghorn?
They're doing a game show next door.
Oh, okay. Now I know what that is. So one of the big things is, and this is where it gets hard, is being able to shift your perception of what's going on, your perspective. So it's really easy, especially if you're the DM and you're running the game, to go, this is how it all works. And it's like, okay, but you're the only person who knows it works that way. You're the only person who, if you want to know why serial killers get away with everything, because if you've ever run a game and you are spoon-feeding your players every hint in the world, they still won't get it. But you might have that one person that goes, I did this in a game we were playing. It was like a World War II-esque, what was it, Nightbane game, if anyone knows Nightbane from Palladium. And I was like, we're trying to gather these artifacts. I'm like, you know what? We go to this city. And he's like, all right, you've arrived at this city. Where do you go? I'm like, I'm just going to ask a tourist guide, where the closest mutual history is. And he's like, yeah, you walk in and Mjolnir's right there. And I'm like, really? And he shows me his notes. And he goes, city, location, where it was at. I literally just pointed at a map and I bet there's something there. You'll have plays like that. So what do? Let them have that reward. If that was a big part of the thing, don't fight them on that. I know a lot of DMs, especially the one that I had here, was like, oh, well, now that they followed you and now they're stealing it. Also, can't I just have the win? We have 40 other artifacts. We have a whole world of war to go with. Let me have the win. And that's kind of one of the big things. Like, let your players have their win if they just grab it from you. Because you have to remember facilitating what it is. At the end of the day, it's not whether or not you're having fun as a GM, it's whether or not your table is like, oh my god, I had a great time. Like, thank you for running that. So, yes.
I have a question on like a true or false kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is it true that when DMing, you don't want to think of the players as like your enemies? You want to think of more as that you're like writing for them?
Yeah, so think of it more as you're playing with them. Like, you're all friends here. It's not you versus them, unless that's how you guys like to play. I've had friends that are like, I am the monster, you are the hero, we are fighting, and people will die, and and that can be fun if that's what you're doing, but you're there to play with them. It's entertainment. So,
you're there to give them something to fight. Or something to challenge.
Yeah, what kind of story do they want? How much fun are they having? You're kind of there to facilitate their enjoyment of the game and give them a story.
Otherwise, they would just be sitting in a field picking flowers the entire day.
They wouldn't have a world without you, really.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like a good way to think of it is, like, they all have their character, and you have a character, too, but the character is everything that isn't them, you know?
Everything that isn't them.
And so, just kind of, like, remembering that sort of dynamic and facilitating that dynamic is really fun.
Which means that if you do want to be you versus them, you can go, the whole world is against you.
Exactly.
I am the world against you.
The world is your enemy.
Yeah. So on that, when I run games, I only have like 2 rules. 1, be your character, like talk in character, like try to actually immerse yourself.
Use those first person pronouns. And 2, well, actually, I guess that's my tip. My 2 rules are, oh my god, my brain. You got this.
Right.
I believe in you.
Okay. Everyone at the table that isn't like the GM, you guys are all working together. I don't care if you're lawful good and you're chaotic evil. What is your reason to drag them around? Why are you keeping them in check? Maybe you're like, look, I keep them in my party because if I don't, it would be worse. And I can't kill them. They're actually useful. And you're like, oh, look at this, like, moron. I'm going to totally take it. I've got a goody two-shoes that can, like, get me into places and then I can destroy, like, figure out the dynamic between your characters of why you're together in a party. Never do inter-party conflict. Unless you make it very clear at the beginning, this is a battle royale and there's only one winner. In which case, the story. One second. And then the second rule is, it's not, does your character run into the burning building? It's, why is your character running into the burning building? Don't go, oh, I wouldn't do that. It's like, okay, bye. You can pack your stuff and leave. Like, all right, that building's on fire. If you're lawful good, well, obviously, make sure that everybody's safe and out of there. If you're chaotic evil, you're like, well, I can make the fire worse. What if there are survivors? There shouldn't be.
I set the fire, and now I'm going to make it look like I didn't.
Yeah, if you're neutral evil or lawful evil, I'm going to look like a hero. And then I'm going to berate the constabulary for not doing their proper job. Tell the people that I can do a better job, rise up as the mayor of this village, steal all of their money, and leave. Why? Because I'm lawful evil. If I'm neutral evil, I'm just like, fire. Right? If you're true neutral, whatever floats your boat. If you're chaotic neutral, you're like, I don't know. Can I break some like things while I'm in there? Or maybe there's a pottery thing. I just pick a reason why you're going in and play with that. And that's, I found for the table, if you give them those 2 rules, they don't go, oh, I wouldn't be doing that. They're like, okay, why would I? And then that gets their imagination flowing. So, what do you got?
You talk about playing in character.
Yes.
So if I'm playing a character with a lot of charisma and I'm not, or a lot of wisdom and I'm not, I know, especially with earlier players also, it's like, well, I want to try and convince him to come with us. So and that is hard.
It is. And the way that I do that is saying, you're already playing pretend. Pretend you're good at it. You're like, oh, well, hello, good citizen. Let me tell you about the honors of coming with us and how your life would be better and your family would be... And just blather like you're a horrible B-rate movie guy and then make your role. Like, just go ahead and just, I'm bad at this. Oh, yeah. I have no
just
charisma.
Be a bad actor. Just do it.
Yes.
So, like, say like you're a bad, charisma. Your player is bad charisma.
Mm-hmm.
Are you as the DM allowed to like make whatever character they're talking to be like do you have to? I don't want to sound rude, but do you have to dumb yourself down?
No. So there's this fun thing. All right, we're using D&D terms, so I'm going to go ahead and kick D&D terms. First of all, you cannot, it is impossible for you to possess charisma. Charisma is something that is ascribed to you for, magnetism or whatever. So if your character has charisma, they don't have to be smooth and suave and attractive. They can be the person that walks through and is like, you, come with me! And they're like, okay, oh, yes. They so if you're a half-orc with good charisma, or, you're a character and you don't know how to play it, you could just be like, look, I just make people do things. I don't have to do it in a way that,
It's like, for what reason are people just going to listen to you?
Yeah. So, because we're talking to DM, I'm going to just play with the things for a little bit. I look at wisdom as how much of what's going on around you are you aware of at any given point. Intelligence is, and what can you do with what you know? And charisma is just force of personality. Through my will alone, I change things, which is why I moved away from D&D and invented a system, because the stats and things don't make any sense. And as a martial artist my whole life, no, that's not what grappling is at all. That's not what any of the combat is. That's not how anything works. It's great if you're playing a board game, but doesn't make any sense if you're actually trying to be narrative and interactive.
I will honestly never forget not being able to just take my 2 short swords and mow through a swarm of baboons and just kill them all without triggering all those attacks of opportunity. No, they're dead.
Yeah,
I have swords.
I threw a thing at them where there was a font of life that was healing magic that was causing things to spontaneously grow with cancer, and there was a pregnant baboon that because of it just kept popping out little half-formed baboons that would swell to full size but only had 1 hit point and popped like balloons. So they were getting swarmed by hundreds of worthless little baboons just to mess with them. She's like, I'm just gonna run through them with my swords, and I'm like, oh yeah, there is no way to do that in this game.
Yeah.
There is no. I have to make a different game system just to make that an option, and that bothered me, which is why narrative RPGs are becoming a lot bigger. People want to be able to be like, oh, well, I'm a ranger with a bow, but I also want to hit you with my bow or do things that make sense. I'm going to stab you in the eye with my arrow. I'm skilled enough to do so. Oh yeah, but it doesn't do anything.
Even when you're fighting, you want to have that creativity while you're doing that.
At the same time, does that mean that you can't take your 10-foot pole with you to the bathroom?
I mean,
Is that depends on what bathroom you're going to.
Yeah, but just the whole idea that you've got, and then I have my elephant head that I got from the quest, and the...
Yeah, I'm going splunking with a great sword.
Yeah. That's kind of dependent on your table.
Okay, so you can still get that vibe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah. Anything. Say, if you're brave enough, anything can.
Can be used as a weapon. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I trained ninjutsu growing up, and with that, anything can be used as a weapon. I had a friend at a karate dojo that's like, how would you kill me with this? If he just holds up a sticky note. And I was like, hey, check this out. And I rolled it up into a spike, and I said, I can slam this through your eardrum. And he's like, how? And I said, cover your ear and come at me. And I slammed it against his hand, and it punched through his hand. And I was like, it doesn't matter. It's angle and momentum. It doesn't really matter what it is. So katanas don't have a blade on them. I don't know how many people know that or not. It's folded steel. If you sharpen it, the steel comes apart. The whole reason why it splits is that last 2 inches of the blade has all of your weight and all of the momentum on it, so that when it hits your body just, that force splits you apart. It's like using an axe, not an edge. And if anybody's ever sharpened an axe and tried to split wood with it, no. If it's sharp enough to cut yourself on, you're gonna break your blade on the wood. So little things like that. Do you care? No, then it's not relevant. Yes? Okay, why can't it be part of the world? If everybody at the table is proficient in ancient Japanese weapons, because I'm on a RPG system for my ninja buddies, we're all of us are that's not how any of that works. None of it. And they're like, well, how do we house rule this? And we're like, oh my, we don't. So yeah.
So yeah.
So the narrative RPG systems that are coming out tend to be a lot more flexible. I'm going to keep plugging Transcendence. You develop your own knowledge and skills. So instead of saying like, oh, I have this background, you're like, no, I have invested my potential into knowing these things like as part of my path to power and getting better at what I know and what I can do, and it's on me to figure it out. If you gain a power, like I have the power of fire, okay, what part of yourself controls that? Are you Johnny Blaze, where it's like your structure, or are you like, is it part of your influence on your social facet? So you literally are like, you will burn, and they burst into flames, or it's just like, you know, you just yell like, your mom, and they're like, oh, why is that actually hurting me?
So like literally spit fire.
Yeah, and I like the idea of letting your players contextualize what it is. Let them decide how their character works and what they're doing and what happens. And when you have that contest of like, okay, and like the dragon's trying to eat you and you're trying to not get eaten by the dragon. Okay, let's put some more context of what's going on. So the dragon's snapping down at you with its maw. It's like, all right, I raise my shield and jump to the side. Okay, let's roll dice. If the dragon wins, it managed to bite you by this much or consume you entirely. If you win, what are you doing? You got your shield up and you're out of the way. And let like your players actually decide the outcome if they're successful. So if you have somebody that loves just like spike whip, grabbing people's legs and whipping them off their feet, go ahead and let them constantly make that check and change the way the game flows with that. If they just keep one tricking that and they can go through almost anything because they've just gotten really good at that one thing, that's fine. There's no reason that you can't have like, I don't know, a bunch of goblins with a shaman sitting back there going firebolt, firebolt, firebolt. And make it organic. And that's one of the big things is like, if you're running a game or even if you're playing and it feels like your GM's like railroading or targeting you because you're good, try to make it feel organic. Like you can go, if anybody's seen Goblin Slayer, that's like a great example of like some guy who's like, I only fight and kill goblins. I have short blades, I've got specific armor, like I am designed to rip my way through an entire goblin cave, including their ambushes and their traps. Okay, what about all of that? Well, that's for adventurers. I'm not an adventurer, I'm a Goblin Slayer. So like, if you one trick something, go ahead and just shine with that when it's valid.
I don't mean to railroad the topic, but
go ahead.
What if you have the opposite problem in that your players aren't like they're not good, but they're like
the whole I don't know.
Yeah.
I hate that.
So remind them this is a game of imagination. So whatever pops into your head, like whatever that is, just go with it. You don't have to worry about like, are you confident? Are you not? Do you know what's going on? Worst case scenario, same as real life, you die. And then you just get a new character. Here, reincarnate as a different character. So, I mean, that's the worst case is it falls apart. So just go ahead and remind them like, hey, what is the first thing that popped into your head? And try to roll with whatever they're imagining. And you'll find that those people that are going, I don't know, or I like, and they seem really timid and they don't know how to play. And they're like, probably what happened, and honestly, we're going to get into like some trauma stuff when they were little kids. They were the kid that was like, I want to do this, and they go to touch something, and their parents are like, don't touch that, sit still, don't do anything. Your brain does not process information. That is a complete misnomer. It's your neurosystem runs through your whole body. So that's why they say go for a walk if you need to process information, play with things, fidget. Your body actually processes a lot more information than your brain does. Your brain makes sense of all the information that's being processed and compares it to the world around you because there's a lot of information going on around you to deal with. So you've had like a lot of people that want to role play and want to get into it spent their whole life sitting still, which is kind of the same thing as if you're completely asleep, how good are you going to be at doing anything? And so most of their body is literally asleep. Just get their imagination moving and you'll see them kind of start to move and get excited and smile and just kind of show them how. Like role play with them, give them things to talk to, and just be like, it's fine, come on. Like, what do you got? I don't care how dumb it is.
Yeah. It's never too stupid to say at the RPG table. It's never too dumb. Just say it.
It's a safe place.
Genius is doing more stupid faster. The smarter you are, that just means the more stupid you do before it exits your mouth. What do you got?
So, what if you have like almost like a party persona conflict? Because but sometimes when you have a party, like you're like, okay, these three, they have a story, they like doing the balance of combat and like storytelling, and then one player is like, I call the stray dog of the group because they just literally wanted to battle royal everything, and they just wanted all these kinds of crazy powers, and I did my best to like roll with it, but it got very difficult trying to like, because they like want two different like playing styles, adventure styles. So it's like almost two worlds, like almost. And trying to figure out how to keep them together as a party was like they were straight battle royale dog. I get it. It's fun. I kind of wish I thought of like, I'm like, no, okay, you gotta like stand up out of your chair and like role play all this fighting you want to do, like so they could get tired out eventually.
Or you'll get them so excited everyone else starts to follow. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you balance that? Like when you have like almost a party.
So I'm gonna start with the like negative thing first. Sometimes it does not make sense for some of your players to be playing with some of your other players.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm animated. I'm doing this. If I'm sitting at your table and I'm playing, and you want to have like just like a calm, regular adventure, I'm going to be doing things like looking at. First time I played AD&D, I looked at shaped stone. I'm like, this says instant. It says this much stone. It does not say anything else about it. So I used it to skewer a dragon while it was asleep, and it's like, oh well, the dragon survived. I'm like, okay, I cast shaped stone again from inside. And the GM's like, I've been running this game for 30, no one's ever, and I was like, why wouldn't you? It's just right there, like you have a weapon to use. And then, so sometimes you realize like, okay, the way that we play and the way other people play don't necessarily get along. And that's one of the things is like, we all grew up being forced to be in rooms with people we would rather not be around. Like, I'm sure all of you can think of at least one person in your class in elementary school you were forced to sit next to where the entirety of you is going, ew, I don't want to be by this person. Ew, I don't want to be by, for the entire school, you're just like, oh, I have to, and after 12 years of going through school with these people, you're just like, yeah, whatever, okay, we're doing something we want to do. Yeah, no, you want to do it with us? That's fine. Not everybody gets along. Not everybody wants to play the same way. Yeah. So either split up your group, but if you have it where everyone, you're all friends and you're doing, but one person's play style is just chaotic, either go, hey, this is the setting of what we do. Or if you want to do that, I'm going to start targeting you first with everything. So if you want a battle royale, like wait for combat to start, everything's coming your way first. Like a god reaches in and goes, poof, there's a mark on your head. Like there will be some divine reward to whatever kills you.
Congratulations, you get the permanent taunt.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it was a really struggle. It was
and it's
there were
hard.
times I could even see my fellow players like roll their eyes because it's all like they became part of the story because like half the conflict was reining them in. So it's like
yeah. So keep in mind at any point if it feels like there's like a conflict or something on the table that isn't included, it's like all right, pause, like time out. Let's go ahead and like fix this because the thing is with all RPGs, like when you're playing, it's your imagination. So you have however many people are at the table trying to merge their imaginations together into something in the middle that they can all experience. And whoever's running the game, for ours we call it the role, whoever's taking on the role of the realm, their imagination is the world everyone's in. Most games just say it's the GM or the DM and everything's their responsibility, which is, no, that actually comes from like old mail-in games where you would like write your battle maneuvers and then like mail them in and then somebody would like figure it all out and mail back to you what happened. Like all the way back in like the 70s. So somehow that's managed to stick around to the internet and it's weird. Like that we still have things that were outdated forever ago. So it's always fun to just stop and go, hey, let's figure out the context, let's figure out the characters, this is like what we want to do as a group. And I love the saying, everyone, like we recognize ourselves as people based on how we contribute to the communities we want to be part of. So go ahead and talk to people and say, hey, like, this is what we're trying to do as a group, or this is what different people like or what they're excited about. How are you going to contribute to the gameplay, not just try to take something out of it for your satisfaction? And then you'll start realizing that people are having more fun. There are some people that just like to bring snacks no matter anywhere they go. They're just like, yeah, I'm prepared. Like, oh, you got that? I've got you. Just, you know.
Blessed is the snack.
Rations are important.
Yeah. And then you have the person who always has a music for the vibe. It doesn't matter what it is. Hold on, I've got something for this, and can put on whatever music it is for the vibe immediately. And she'll drop that in. And then you have people like me that goes, wait, hold on. No, if we spin it this way, all right. And everybody goes, yeah, no, that works. All right, we're in it. And so you just play with it and figure it out. And it's really about trying to find a way that everyone can, in their own imagination, make room for other people's imagination. Which is hard to do when you've spent most of your life sitting still and using your brain to do things your hands and body should have been doing when you were growing up. And it's a process, but when you start getting into it, not only does it get more fun, you get healthier. I've lost 30 pounds in the last 6 months just from doing this. Just getting into Transcendence and just playing. I've gotten healthier, I've gotten better. I've not changed my diet. No, the change in my diet is I've started eating a lot more ice cream.
He's not joking. He's not joking. We have 8 pints of ice cream in our fridge right now.
So, yeah, the crux of it is it's your imagination. Whatever you can imagine, you can make real in an RPG. But you're not the only person imagining it. And there is no possible way to imagine what someone else is going to imagine. If God himself stood on this stage and said, this is how the universe works, and all of you are imagining things I could never imagine because you could just make it up. You can make up whatever you want. And so can everyone else at the table. So you just kind of try to figure out how to make room for that, which is the hardest thing to do if you're an organized kind of person, because you're all right, I want to know what I'm doing. And then you're all right, so here's what's going on. And they're I'm going to do this. And you're I am not at all prepared for whatever that first thing out of their mouth. Try to railroad some games. Try to railroad a game with a bunch of 12-year-olds and see how long before you're okay, so we had a clear objective and a time frame, and I don't know how we got over here. I don't even. Okay, they're having fun. So that's the thing. My rambling aside, it's all imagination, and when you're running a narrative, remember that each person should be the one in charge of the narrative of their character. So think of it as if you're the GM or you're the storyteller or you're the realm or whatever, you do things to them. If they fail to overcome what's being done to them, you're imposing the narrative on their character. If their character succeeds, they impose the narrative on the realm. And that's the back and forth that you have. And try not to let that be where we're all in a party fighting each other because we have each other at the table. Play with the realm, play with the storytelling. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Good. So, I can harp on that for hours. I can go into different ways of thinking about it. One of the things we do in Transcendence is just as a general framework, we split everything into 4 facets: physical, mental, spiritual, and social. And all of the combat, everything, it all works the same.
If you go and talk to the Pixel people that we mentioned earlier, they also have kind of a core category thing that's kind of similar.
Yeah, which is wild because we met them yesterday.
We had no contact with them until yesterday. It was kind of crazy meeting them.
Because that's one of the things is I like talking about there's 2 terms I use are environmental storytelling, which everybody kind of recognizes, and ripple effect world building. My favorite example of environmental storytelling was walking through IKEA and seeing just the prehensile hand with these 2 fingers zip tied together. So these 2 fingers that tells a story all on its own. And dropping little things like that into your story, let your players latch onto stuff, and you'll hear them talking, and you can just let them do all of the work for your world building. And now they're having fun because they feel like they're valuable and relevant.
And if they get distracted by the bottomless pits in front of the wizard tower, let them. They're having fun. They're playing with the world. Just let them do it. Even if it means that 3 hours later they still haven't gone into the wizard tower. That's okay, as long as everyone's having a good time.
But if they're not having a good time, though, if they feel lost and they don't have a direction,
just make something happen.
Yeah.
The doors explode open.
You need to give them a direction to have.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Or you can just say, hey guys, the pits are decorative.
nothing's going on.
The decorative bottomless
And then
place.
usually they'll be like, oh, okay, and move on.
Yeah.
Wizard sticks his head out. Get off my moat, you kids!
Yeah, like even professional like actors and whatever will sometimes get distracted by the most minor detail. It's like, yeah, and the hedges that are lining the path. They're like, oh, what about the hedges? And it's like, guys, no. They're just like, oh, he's trying to get us away from him. What's going on? It's like, no, stop. Ain't gonna happen. So you have to like time out. They're decorative. Please move on. Because sometimes you just need to be like, all right, here, context. That wasn't important. I was just giving you like.
I was setting the scene.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say that's my biggest tip if you're running games. Is don't be afraid to go time out. Here's the context of what's going on for you as the player that your character would know that you wouldn't. Because that's everyone talks about metagaming, like, oh, you know things your character doesn't know. But that works in reverse more often than not. Your character probably knows a whole lot more about what's going on than you, the player, do.
For one thing, they see it.
Yeah, they see it, they feel it, they hear it. They're part of the world that they're in, so they kind of grew up with this being a thing, or at the very least, it's real to the character, even if it's not really you as the player. And that's kind of where, the immersion starts to break, is when that starts to separate. So go ahead and just time out. Let's bring it all back together.
Do you mind if I hop on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, looking up at the wizard tower, they have some mental... So they roll a perception check or something like that to understand the tower. And then you're saying if they get that, then they describe the tower to you?
So the way that I would be running it is if they're looking through the tower, okay, not just, is it a perception check? Notice that doesn't give me, as the realm, any context to know what you're doing. I want to perceive the tower. Okay, it's in front of you. What do you like? Okay, I have knowledge of ancient lore, local history, ancient history, and architecture.
Okay.
And I have a, check it out skill. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I'm using this knowledge combined with this skill. Oh, okay, give me a roll, difficulty 2 to get some basic stuff, difficulty 8 to figure things out. And if somehow you get to 20, you can decipher the runes around the outside that you now see. And so then they roll their skills and all right, I got a 10. It's okay, so you get this and kind of this, but you don't know what the rest of it is.
And so you come across a statue that looks funny, then they would say, well, I want to know more about that statue, and you would provide that background to them.
Yeah, and I very much like asking you as the player, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is your background? What do you know?
Right,
Why
because
do you know
if you're
this?
looking at it from the perspective of someone who's really knowledgeable about archaeology versus someone who's really knowledgeable about I don't know, sculpture.
Versus someone who's really knowledgeable about magical traps.
Yeah, then you're gonna have some very different information that you notice.
Right. Okay.
And so
it's all about those different perspectives.
And if they just feel like something's off on this, then that's what they're doing. They're looking for something that's out of place or unusual. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of not doing gotchas to players. So you can be like, okay, it's trapped, but you don't know that. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to keep looking. It's like, no, you don't know. You looked, you saw it wasn't. How would you continue going as this character going, oh, yeah, that's not trapped? Because I had you check, yes, you know, but
a lot of the time when people hear that, they try to do it in the funniest way. They're like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm searching here. And I'm like, guys, I don't think it's trapped as I step on the booby trap. They'll really get into it.
Yeah, give them the opportunity to play in your world. Much the same way as if you imagine being 5 years old and you're set in the middle of a dungeon, what would you do? Okay, now you have all of these powers in your big. What would you do? You're still 5. I like saying the difference between being a child and an adult is that adults pay taxes and forgot how to play. Because if it's not fun, you're not going to learn how to do it anyway. That just is life. You're trying to learn something and it's boring and it's monotonous. You're just wait, how do I do that again? Is that important? But if you're having fun, you'll learn. And honestly, running this game, we've been oh, we're going to be pirates on a ship, and Becca started looking up
I know so much about analog ship navigation now.
Analog ship navigation.
And another thing about running games is don't make the characters of your players, don't punish the player for something that the character's not good at. Let that actually be part of the story and not just, oh, you triggered this trap. and now you're all just actually dead, unless that's the level of game that you're at.
A great example of this is if you've ever watched One Piece, Roano Aazlor. Go that way. Which way? Like literally in Jai, he's got the bird going, go north, and it's facing north. And he's like, why are you looking that way? The bird's just like, I am a DM intervention, go that way. No. Like, that might be your plan. You're like, all right, so after a while, and all right, giant snake eats you and drags you to the thing. Like, you can do that. It's funny. Like, so your characters and your players are just getting so far off base that it's like destroying everything. Go ahead and remember that, like, throw in a gag. Just to have, like, and you step on a trap and it snaps up, but the trap is old and it breaks and it catapults you in the direction you needed to go. And, like, feel free to remember that it's play. Silliness, being dumb, that's half the fun of playing as a kid. If you want it to be dark and serious, it'll get dark and serious if you started off silly. If you started off dark and serious, you're going to end up with Monty Python. Because you're going to, like, get really, there's jokes about it, but every game I've started where it started off as, like, this dark, serious horror game. The only time it stayed a dark, serious horror game is when, like, the GM is, like, obsessed with horror. But even still, it becomes ridiculous. Like, there was a point where, like, I was literally a regular guy face-to-face with a supernatural Jason in the mask, like, at a camp. And I flick his mask off. And he's like, I'm not expecting that. And it's like, yeah, I rip his mask off. And it's like, he cleaves you in half. I'm like, okay, what did his face look like before he died? It's like, well, you don't know that because you're now this character. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah, no. Hunter was an idiot. That was the last character. Because you can do that. So, like, even if you're being silly, if anybody's ever watched a horror movie that has that moment that's kind of funny when it shouldn't be, and then, like, that makes the other dark stuff even darker. So, like, don't be afraid to just suddenly change the tempo. If you have a character that's always funny, when they're suddenly serious, everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? It'll play with it. So, yeah, it's the amount that I can't say, like, all right, so my dead horse that I just beat over and over and over is context. Context down. If there's ever a point where somebody's like, wait, I don't know what's going on, or they're trying to do something and they're not providing you context, like the barbarian's like, I rush in a rage and swing my axe. Okay, come on, like, give me context. Like, yeah, I leap up and I spin around, like, the worm's head and I try to cleave for its shoulder because I want to walk, like take that out so it's moving slower. Cool. Like, start actually bringing in other things that aren't just, like, hit point pools and number crunching. Like, really try to get visceral with the experience and cerebral with the actions, instead of just trying to play it like a complex board game where you have more options than just what's written.
You're going over the 4 aspects?
Oh,
I forgot what they were.
Yeah, it's
mine just
so
somewhere in there.
Plug funism.fun is the website that I just threw Transcendence up on. It's free. If you want to build a setting for it, reach out to me. Email's on there. But so the way that I've got it set up is you have physical, mental, spiritual, and social facets. Those give you your general ideas, and when you transcend, being like, I can do something that no one else can do. Like, think Superman versus a regular person. Or even just Michael Phelps is like, the way his body is how many standard deviations towards swimming. How fast is Usain Bolt to a regular person? So I use, like, your transcendences is this is the power scaling. So when you, like, move to the next level of power, what does that mean? If we're playing a game where we're literally just boxers and the whole thing is like we're working on being better boxers, your transcendence level might just be, it's like when I throw my left jab, I don't have to use focus or stamina. That just flies out on its own. So now I can have extra dice when I do that. Or it could just be like, yeah, I'm physically transcendent. Anything I do with my body, I get free dice. I can just do an extra skill whenever I want. So that's kind of what the facets are, and they help to contextualize. And this is really, I like building context through words. So, like, if you have the power of fire, if it's tied to your physical facet has 2 aspects, all the rest have 1, and your aspects are like, how does that express itself? So you have structure and mobility. And then for mental, you have acumen, like how do you make decisions? For spiritual, you have identity, which is like, I am this person, you will not make me, like Luffy, I am king of the pirates. Naruto, I will be the Hokage. Like, any shonen character, like, who they are is established first sentence of the friggin' thing. Like, until that is, like, the truth of the world, it keeps going. And then your social is your influence. So you could have a guy who's like really great social character, but is like just annoying. Like I was using her as an example, like I can just do this until you do what I want, no matter who you are or what. I will annoy you into submission. And I'm very, very charming and graceful about it because I can convince you to do something. And you try to come fire back at me and I'll just annoy you into doing what I want again. You can totally do that as a character. It doesn't have to be that your social stuff is like, I am a like top tier Hollywood, everyone loves me. Like, no, you could just be a jerk. You can be Chris Evans. I don't know if you guys know, he's always like the problem on set. Captain America, like he just, and everyone's like, oh, who's the problem? Oh, Chris. And they're like, oh, so who do you think the troublemaker is? He's like, I don't think we have one. It's hilarious to me. But yeah, you can have these differences. And then I have it split up so then you have your attributes, and your attributes give you vantage. Like, so instead of straight number modifiers, because then you can just game the numbers, it's like, okay, if I have +1 strength, whenever I'm using my strength to do something, I get to have a point of advantage that I get to say goes to this dice or this skill or this situation, or even still, I impose the disadvantage on Kirsten, because if I'm using my strength to push her, instead of making it where I'm like doing that, I'm making it harder for her to do it because I'm using it against her. You can do things like that. Rebecca would have negative strength. So anytime she's like, she could be a master power lifter, but look at her, she's tiny. She's already going to be like, even if I'm rolling D12s to lift these things, I'm rolling with disadvantage because I am tiny. As examples, so go.
The other thing about the attributes is it's not like a comparison of your character versus other characters. It is how well does your character actually use what they have. So like a character that has, not a lot of physical strength might have a very, like a higher attribute modifier because they have figured out how to use their strength to their best advantage. It's not necessarily that like you're just really strong. It's about how you use what your character has.
So yeah, this is half turned into a plug for Transcendence. Instead of like narrative RPGs. There are a lot that are out there, which is great, and it's kind of weird because you can almost put them in a spectrum that I was trying to do yesterday and they kept telling me to stop, so I'm just doing this real quick. And you can go from like on the far left, you have RPGs like World of Warcraft. It's here's numbers, press the buttons. And then on the far right, you have Transcendence, where it's just pure conceptualization and there are no like this is how it works. It's just what do you want to do with it.
The mechanics only exist to provide more context, not less.
Yeah, there's just scaffolding context. So when you're working with like context, there's a lot of the systems like to say, here's the context of how this works. Any spell in the player's handbook is here's the context for how this works. So you see everybody sitting there going, well, if it words it like this, I can change my interpretation of those words to this connotation and then do this with it. Like animate dead lets me like take any pile of bones. Well, I can animate the bones in your body, and it's like, no.
Those are
like,
alive.
I get where you're playing with the words, but also like there's more context here than just that. And so the more that you not only provide the context to your players, but you as a player provide the context to your GM and whoever's running it, you might find out that like the amount of context that different people can hold varies greatly. Some people can have the context in their head of entire worlds and civilizations and economic systems just running in the background, and other people like, here's the dungeon, here's the encounter, I'm good there. And it varies. So if you start trying to build the context, you'll start not just noticing who you enjoy playing with and who does that, but you might start noticing like 2 people or 3 people in your group, when they get set up just right, will start building context off of each other that will start enveloping your world and making it fun for everybody as well. So yeah, I guess back to a new genre, hopefully. Like it'd be nice to see, like I'm sure all of you would like to see the next like wave of RPG games based in the ability to build your own skills and build your own powers and like work in a world where you as the player can add context into the game server for other people to play, as opposed to just being told, here's what you have to play with, go press the buttons and do damage. So it is slowly working in that other direction, and it's fantastic to see. It's just taking time to get there because computers start with no context. You have to program how everything works, and getting it more modular and inverted is very difficult to do. If anybody's ever played with AI, you'll know that.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So going to the players, you're letting the players do a lot of, okay, this is what I'm trying to do and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You're going to have the guy that says, well, I work hard at katanaing so that I can slice anybody in half in one swipe. And that may break the world in the sense that that's more powerful than everything else that the other party.
Sure, but as long as you're still dealing with the dice and the numbers, you're like, my goal is to cut everything in half. Okay, you will eventually get there.
Okay, so you block it with the dice and the attributes, saying that that's just too complicated.
Well, honestly, if you can get there with the mechanics, like so in Transcendence we use a trauma system, where like, if you want to cut them in half, you're going to have to do enough in your one skill to do like at least 41 like
trauma.
Effect, like points of trauma, whatever amount. Yeah. Like it would be like enough damage that you did kill it in one hit, and there's no recovering from that.
So you still balance it and say, hey, these are the limits based on.
Yeah, and it's all still in there.
Like
and
based on how you can imagine getting there, I feel like. And if you do have one person who just really wants to be super powerful, like go ahead and like encourage everyone else to also be super powerful and like balance bring the world along with them.
Okay.
And don't try to so we don't run social encounters, mental, spiritual, we run that and physical combat all the same. Because I'm sitting up here talking to you guys, but if I started picking on somebody and like dressing you down and making you feel bad until you broke and cried and ran out of the room, hey, that could be an encounter where you're like, think about like social things where like somebody is like harassing you until you throw wine on them and it's like, oh, reputation hit, that went bad. Now you don't have access to this. So you can run it all the same mechanically and just go, what skills do you have? Right. What are you doing? Instead of just like tabletop RPGs where it's 99% combat, couple of little things that aren't. Instead of you just kind of take your mechanics and your context and you open it up, you can be like, so let's say like Becca like pulls out a knife to stab me and I go and spit my drink into Kirsten's face as she like goes to lunge, specifically as like a gag thing. So now I've got a character that will make you laugh so hard, like Usopp, like the rubber band, when he's fighting me and he's like, waboon, and like they flinch. Okay, you can play psychological warfare. You can do little things to get advantage or maneuver people in little ways and make them use up resources trying to do things that aren't happening in order to like get to the point where they're so exhausted it's now just a coup de grace. Like you can play with that, and by bringing in that context and bringing in your imagination and really building it up, you open up way more possibilities for play and fun than any system gives you by default. And it's like, just I get excited about it. No, shut up.
I think we do need to wrap things up.
Are we hitting time? Oh, we got 8 minutes. Any other questions, comments, things?
Where can we find your game online?
Funism.fun. That's just the website. Like funism .fun. It's up there. It's free. It's all right there. We'll also be doing a playtest tomorrow at 2 p.m. So if you want to come by and see what it's like to like slay a dragon or be a toy or something for a couple of hours, please.
And if you want to watch, feel free.
Do you have any sort of like a business card or?
We don't because
we've got funism.fun.
Our email's on there. It's cultoffunism@gmail.com because that's
fun.
Our existence is to play and have fun. But that's up there. If you want to reach out to us, we respond regularly to emails that go to our phones. We like communicating with people, so reach out. If you want to look at how the game works, it's up there. Our current character sheet is up there. If anything changes or we're like, the rules, like this turns out it's bad or whatever.
The website will be updated.
It gets updated, but I think we're sitting at the point where like the core system is solid. It's just You'll notice if you look at the character sheet, there's something that says techniques that isn't written anywhere in the like actual core rules. Because like, I don't know if anybody's seen the thing where you take a glass bottle, like a beer bottle, and a spoon and go dink dink, dink dink, pop, and it comes right off. That's a technique. There's no amount of skill that makes that any different. You do this thing and it happens. Like, you know, get the iron to this heat, it melts, and then you can use your skill to forge it. So like, techniques, I just throw on there on character sheets in case you want to do something. Breaking bricks, it's a technique. There's not really any skill. You just set it at an angle and you go through the brick and it will break. Unless it's been outside for like a year, in which case it's so hard that no, it won't. But yeah, so it's all on there. It's funism.fun. Can't make that easier. But yeah, that's how you guys get a hold of us. If you want anything at all. We are local to Tucson, so if you want to play, you want to get games set up, please. I'm a disabled veteran, so I have more than enough time. I will happily come play, run games, and do things with people. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Playing Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, please check out D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Ragnarok Enroll a Scion Hero to Ragnarok Story. Also, check out our Patreon page for more content and behind-the-scenes things, as well as joining us for a one-shot game or two.